Which one seed right now do you believe has the easiest path to Omaha?
I'm going to go with
one of the most underrated postseasons in sports all across the world is finally here once again. And that's with college baseball, the road to Omaha. Now, we just got the regionals selected, the teams that make up those regionals, trying to get to a super, and then go to Omaha for the College World Series. And as usual, here at Crain & Company, we try and bring on the experts of the experts when it comes to things like this. And boy, do we got one for you. Co-owner of D1 Baseball, our guy Kendall Rogers.
Kendall,
what's up, dog? What's up, Bring the Juice? How's it going?
It's going great. I have not slept much in the last 4 days. I feel like during conference tournament week and leading up to Selection Monday, I get so many calls from coaches trying to figure out if I think they're getting in. I get calls from coaches' agents because the coaching carousel is about to be here. The transfer portal is about to open up, and so it's a lot of phone calls and a lot of missed texts. I think I actually, just looking at my phone, I have 350 missed texts. So that gives you an idea of how busy we are these days.
Well, some say you're the Joe Lunardi of the college baseball postseason game. What would you say to that?
That far, but I mean, I'll take it, but yeah, whatever. I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
Well, Kendall, I want to start here because, look, there'll always be a little bit of controversy and things like this when you have a selection committee. But, and we were talking before you came on, not a ton of drama with the release this year. Is that just because everything was so kind of fortified into who we all, knew would get in because of the automatic berth for winning the conference tournament? But then kind of on that cut line, there wasn't as much back and forth other than, A&M preseason #1 in Virginia not making it. That was shocking.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, on those two teams really quickly, A&M and Virginia just got off to a really slow start. I mean, both those teams were expected to be juggernauts offensively coming this season. Both of them struggled offensively at the beginning of the season. And, by the time they finally kind of got their act together, it was too late. Their RPIs were already too low. A&M, the second to last week of the season, they get somehow, I still don't understand how this happens, but they get swept by Missouri, who is the worst Power 4 team in college baseball at home, which is, Blue Bell Park's a tough place to go play, but they get swept at home by that team. So that was a little disappointing. I mean, just to see two really talented teams like that not even sniff the postseason. But I think just overall, I think the committee got it right. I don't say that very often. I can tell you this, I've been covering college baseball since 2003, and I think this is the first year that I look at the selections, and there's not something that I go, how in the world did they even come to that conclusion? This year, that wasn't the case. I mean, you could argue Coastal Carolina is a little bit underseeded at 13. You could argue UConn should be in. We had UConn in. We missed one team. We had UConn in. We had Kentucky out. I thought it was interesting that Kentucky wasn't even one of the last 5 teams in. They were above that fold. So, UConn, I just have a lot of respect for the job that Jim Penders, does. I mean, you look in the northeast part of the country and have a program like that has been in numerous super regionals, has won numerous regionals. They were just in a super last year. I think, that's a program that deserves the benefit of the doubt, and I thought they did enough to get in the postseason. But frankly, outside of that, the top 8, no issue with Oregon State being a top 8. I mean, I give Mitch Canham and that program a lot of credit because we, as you guys I'm sure have talked about plenty of times, when college, athletics realigned, Oregon State was like a lone survivor. I mean, they were an independent. They had to go build their own schedule. And so I have a lot of respect for the fact they were able to build a good schedule that ended up creating a really good resume and with good metrics for them for the postseason. So no issue with them being a top 8. So I guess, this is kind of lame, but I don't have anything to complain about, really.
God, must be nice, David. Must be nice, because that's all we do during football season at the end of it.
Well, you talked about Coastal Carolina possibly being a little underseeded, yet they're still a 1 seed. They're hosting a regional, and Florida's the 2 seed in that region. And Florida's the favorite right now to come out of that region. Do you think that region will be the most competitive, or do you think it will be one of these others around the country?
Yeah, I think that's going to be ultra competitive. And, I don't know how much people know Cliff Godwin at ECU and Kevin O'Sullivan at Florida, but I call that the bench press regional because both of those guys, if you watch Florida and ECU this weekend, you will notice that they spend a few hours a week in the weight room on their biceps. So I call it like the bench press regional because those two are both jacked up. But yeah, I do think that's going to be a competitive regional. I think if you look at Florida, you look at their weekend rotation, they are really a mash unit. I mean, Colby Shelton's been banged up. Luke Hyman, their talented backstop's out for the year. Kate Curlin was hurt, has been out for a while. He's been hurt. And they've been able to win despite that. And so when you look at Florida's weekend rotation with Liam Peterson, who's one of the premier, pitchers in college baseball, he's going to be a first-round pick next year. You look at, Aiden King and, Pierce Coppola. Those are all three premium arms. And so, Florida's dangerous. I think if you look across the country, I think Oxford is really interesting to me with Ole Miss. Ole Miss, that was a program that at like the midseason mark, like their fans for like, the 8th straight year wanted Mike Bianco run out of town. And all Mike Bianco did is put together a really good second half of the season. They looked awesome at the SEC tournament last week. And, they're dangerous. But I mean, if you look at their tournament field, you have Georgia Tech as a 2 seed who won the ACC and didn't host because they played the weakest, number 16 intra-conference strength of schedule in the ACC. That's why they didn't host. They're going to be angry going in Oxford. Their offense is ranked 13th in the country. Western Kentucky, Mark Reardon, he was a superstar JUCO coach. That is one of the best turnaround jobs in modern college baseball history. Like he's turned Western Kentucky, of all places, into a really, really good mid-major program. They're 14th in the country in offense. And then Murray State, Dan Skirka, out of the state of Kentucky, they've done a really good job. They've got a potent offense, and they are ranked 40th in the country in offense. So you've got all four teams are ranked in the top, 50, 60 offensively. In a ballpark like that plays very heavily offensive, that's going to be a fun regional with a lot of different outcomes potentially.
Well, as someone who was born in Greenville, North Carolina, I'm excited to hear that not only is ECU a worthy 3 seed, but they've been doing their push-ups. Kendall, which 4 seed would you say is most likely to win their region?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I will say this. Keep an eye on Columbia. I know this sounds crazy, but, I mean, Brett Breddy does a really nice job there. That's a program that has a history of winning games in a regional. They're good. They're very consistent. I think they're dangerous. I think the other, maybe just kind of looking at the list, the only other 4 seed that I see that could shake things up a little bit is maybe Fresno State. Mm-hmm. They're stuck in the Mountain West where, the RPI is always going to be an albatross, or like the teams that league are always going to be an albatross from an RPI standpoint. So it's really hard to gauge just how good those teams are in that league because, I mean, they might dominate that league and their RPI is still like 60 because the bottom of that league is so bad. Just keep it on Fresno State. Of course, Fresno State, as we all remember back in, what was it, 2008, they were a 4 seed in a regional. In Tempe, they win it, and they go on to Omaha, ended up winning the national championship as the first 4 seed in history to do so. I don't think they're going to do that this year, but I think they could shake some things up there in the Los Angeles regional with UCLA, UCI, and ASU.
Ken, I want to ask you, is that Mark Reardon from Iowa Western?
That is Mark Reardon from Iowa.
Dude, he was there when I was there.
Nice job.
Really?
Yeah. How did I not know that?
Come on, dude,
how did I not? That's awful.
Yeah,
I knew Mark. I coached football
awesome
there
JUCO coach.
For Strohmeyer. Yeah, he was a great dude too, an absolute great. Good for him. I saw Western Kentucky, I think, walk it off to punch their ticket or whatever they had.
You
they
showed
were
your
in the bubble.
culture out
Like
here.
had they not walked that off, there's a very good chance they don't even make the NCAA tournament.
Good for Mark.
Like our 5th team out from the postseason.
Speaking about a great weekend, don't miss our current sale over at the Daily Wire. You get 40% off new Daily Wire Plus annual memberships, but it ends soon. Go ahead and make the play. The ball's in the air. Go get it. You can unlock our full entertainment library, get additional access to us with live Q&A, plus find exclusive content like our new series, The Film Room.
Yes.
Hey. That's right. Get in there, learn something, be better. Head to Daily Wire Plus and use code DW40 to join now and save 40% on all new annual memberships. But hurry, it won't last long. Yeah, that's solid. That is freaking awesome.
That's solid. Well, Kendall, I want to talk about this. Which 1 seed right now do you believe has the easiest path to Omaha?
Good question.
I'm going to go with LSU. And again, if they play Clemson in a super, I'm not calling that easy. Calm down, Clemson fans. But, I mean, if you look at the regional, I mean, let's get real here. LSU, Dallas Baptist, Rhode Island, and Little Rock. The average RPI of that regional is 99. That gives you an idea of just how bad some of these bottom RPIs are. I do think Dallas Baptist is dangerous. You know, Dan Hefner has done an incredible job there every single year. Grant Jay is one of the players to watch in this tournament. He's an electric bat. I don't think it's the Dallas Baptists of old. You know, you think back to some of those teams that are, have 7 or 8 big leaguers right now. I don't think they're one of those teams. So I just think LSU has a pretty, I wouldn't, Jay Johnson would get very mad at me for saying it's a very easy path, but I mean, it's very favorable to say the least. And I just think, Clemson, West Virginia, or Kentucky out of that regional going to the box and Baton Rouge, I mean, I just don't see them knocking LSU off at home.
Well, if there's ever a fan base that needed to be in Omaha, I believe it's the LSU Tigers.
LSU fans had 7,000 people at the SEC tournament, which was a single elimination tournament. So think how many people it is to go on the road for a tournament that is like, you may watch one game and then get in your car and drive back home. And I think it's like a 5-hour drive from Baton Rouge.
Yeah, well, I do feel like, if you have any stock in Jell-O or you're, what is it, Rocco's?
Yeah.
Is it Rocco's out there where they do the Jell-O shot challenge? I think 70% of the Jell-O gets consumed in Jell-O shots, and having LSU fans there who invented drinking, especially early in the morning.
Yeah, as someone who has actually tried one of those before, I don't know how someone can possibly have like 12 of them.
How are they strong?
Let's
Kendall,
just say they're
strong?
not high quality.
Okay, yeah. Well, when you're doing 70,000 of them, I guess it is what it is.
I'm not. I kind of wanted to flip that on its head, Kendall. And which one seed do you see and actually might be in the most trouble getting out of the regional?
Yeah, I think I look around this tournament, and I think UCLA, kind of go back to the Fresno State thing. I think UCI is really good. Benny Orloff's done an awesome job there. They won the Big West. They could have very easily been a host had they finished a little stronger. They had a couple of slip-ups down the stretch, but they're really good. Arizona State, it's kind of which Arizona State team shows up. I mean, they're one of the more offensive teams in the country, but, they were pretty much silent offensively at the Big 12 tournament. If they have an offensive weekend, they could win that regional. I think the other one for me, I think Oregon with Arizona and Cal Poly, we talked earlier about, Georgia Tech, being angry on the road because they didn't host. Arizona's RPI was too low to host. They were down at 27. But, Chip Hell's done a really good job there. They won that tournament. I think they finished 2 games out of first place in the Big 12. And, their pitching staff is on a roll right now. And they can really hit. Mason White is as good as any, middle infielder in the country. He can really hit. He hits for power. Brendan Summerhill, for MLB fans, he will be a very high draft pick. And so, Arizona has the personnel to match up with those guys. I think the other one for me that's interesting is Corvallis with Oregon State, TCU, USC, and St. Mary's. Kudos to USC. First time in 10 years. The Trojans, were in the NCAA tournament. Andy Stakowitz and that staff have done an awesome job. They've got a really good 1-2 punch in the weekend rotation. Cade Naoki is kind of the big name to watch there. And then TCU finishes 1 game out of the Big 12 regular season championship. They are the runner-up in the tournament championship. And they had a really good case to host. Their RPI was 17. They had really good metrics. They fell just short. But again, another team that's going to be incredibly motivated this weekend, and they have the personnel to go toe-to-toe with the Beavs.
Starting this podcast, well, sometimes it felt overwhelming for us. Script, setup, filming schedule, logos. We're trying to figure it all out.
I'm overwhelmed.
You were super duper overwhelmed. And like we found out, when you're launching something new, your to-do list grows daily, threatening to take over your life. And finding a tool that both helps and simplifies can be a game changer. It could be your MVP. And for millions of businesses, that MVP is Shopify. Hit that button, David.
Cha-ching!
Yeah, buddy, you definitely pressed it. Shopify powers millions of businesses worldwide and 10% of all U.S. e-commerce. That's right, 10%. Shopify, they're behind everyone from big names like Gymshark to that new brand you may have just discovered. Because starting out is simple. Just pick one of their hundreds of templates and customize it to match your style. No design skills needed. And creating content? That's where the AI really shines. Need product descriptions or catchy headlines? Done. Want better product photos? they've got you covered. But the best part is how easy marketing becomes. You can reach your customers wherever they are, whether they're scrolling through social media or checking their old school emails. Because behind the scenes, Shopify handles everything else: inventory, shipping, returns, all the details you don't have to worry about. Because the truth is, if you're ready to sell something, Shopify is ready for you. Turn your big business idea into money.
Cha-ching!
With Shopify on your side. And sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Crain. That's shopify.com/CRAIN. Shopify.com/Crain. You know what time it is. Man, I do, Kendall. I want to ask you about Nebraska, man, because I think it's so great for college baseball that both the Mississippi schools are in, Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Nebraska is in. Miami's in. Bama got in. Auburn's hosting. It seems like the roster of teams here, you got a decent amount of traditional ball clubs that are really, really talented that tend to make it, and then some guys who have kind of disappeared and are now back. I mean, how big is that? Because I remember when I was playing, like, Nebraska was horrifying still. Like, Nebraska was really, really good, and it's kind of flipped on its head. I mean, what does that mean for the overall sport and kind of the excitement level behind it? Because isn't it growing? Doesn't it feel like it's growing to you, Kendall? I mean, I'm looking at your following, and it grows every year. People get more and more excited about this.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think there's a lot of factors. I think, I think teams have started to figure out, this is not Nebraska, but this is at more of a mid-major level. I think teams have started figuring out that, like Coastal Carolina to me is like the poster program for what I'm talking about. But the schools have started figuring out that, hey, we're never going to compete with Michigan, Texas, Alabama in football.
Yeah.
So let's go out there and invest in a sport that, we can get a lot of exposure on the national stage. And, we're not spending, $25 million to keep it running. And so that's led to a lot of programs around the country investing into college baseball. Coastal Carolina plays in a ballpark that's probably better than 75% of the SEC. So you've seen that. You started to see, programs like Nebraska, they've always invested in baseball, but, you're starting to see Creighton down the road. Creighton is a 3 seed in the Fayetteville Regional and Ed Services last year. So I just think with college baseball, I think there's I wouldn't say easy is the right word, but there's a more accessible pathway to winning at a high level in college baseball. And, with the House settlement, if they ever actually pass it, which don't get me started on that one.
Yeah.
That will make it even more, to me, more accessible for programs, because what'll happen is, you'll have some schools who, and I think this is where the Big Ten schools will get hurt a little bit. You'll have some schools that have, 34 sports, some that have 17, and guess what? Those schools that have 17, they'll be able to give baseball 34 full scholarships, whereas right now we're 11-7. So once that passes, you're going to see even more programs, in my opinion, take off that are willing, the programs that are willing to invest in the sport a little bit.
Every time I hear about baseball getting more scholarships now, possibly, I just think about Ron Polk.
Yeah.
And just how fired up.
Yeah.
I remember how
nobody hates the NCAA like that guy.
No, and because of that, I respect him even more. That's why at the end of the day.
Kendall, we're here in Nashville, so I want to ask you about 2 1 seeds here. First off, the defending champs, Tennessee, and then second off, the number 1 overall seed, Vanderbilt. Right now, which program would you trust more to get to Omaha and win this thing?
I think right now Vanderbilt, and it's kind of crazy to say. I mean, had I said this 2 months ago, I would have been like, man, why am I saying this? But, I just think with Vandy right now, they are hitting with a lot more power.
Yeah.
They're a lot more offensive. I think one of the big keys for them, it just feels like R.J. Austin is getting involved a lot more. At the midseason mark, he wasn't really making a huge impact, and he's starting to make a big impact. Braden Holcomb has been awesome in the clutch. Pitching wise, I mean, Scott Brown has them dialed up. I mean, they are pitching at an extremely high level. They have one of the more intriguing pitchers in college baseball in Connor Fennell, because he's one of those guys that, he doesn't throw 97, but he's got a nasty slider. Everything's always moving. The arm slot is funky, and he's really hard to square up. So the thing about Vandy that I love is not only do they have elite pitching, but they have a lot of different looks. And I just think in the postseason that helps you a lot. I think for Tennessee, I think the outcomes for them are either really good or just really bad. Like I don't think they'll lose in a regional, but like I could see them going like 0-2 in a super, or I could see them playing for the national championship. You just don't know who's going to show up. I mean, last week in Hoover, in one of the games. Their defense was atrocious. Their defense the weekend I was in Baton Rouge. I mean, they had the series opener of that game one. I don't know if you guys remember. That was the one that finished at like 2 a.m. with the walk-off homer. But they had a substantial lead in the ninth inning, and they just booted the ball around. So when Tennessee goes off the tracks, that is why. Like their defense is just not very good. So if they can clean some things up defensively this weekend, next weekend in Omaha, I mean, the sky's the limit for them. But I mean, they haven't done that all year, so I don't understand why anybody should think they're going to start doing it the last 3 weeks of the season. But there is always a team who this time of year, clean slate, all of a sudden they're a different club, and maybe that's Tennessee.
Yeah, well, we see it in college basketball all the time as well. Y'all good?
Good.
Man, Kendall, please tell everybody if they don't know, we love talking college baseball on here when we get the opportunity. Would love to have you back when we know who's going to Omaha. But tell everybody where they can find your work because, man, you guys from top to tail, man, it's great stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think we had 10 people on the road for conference tournaments, and I think back to when we started D1 Baseball, by the way, D1Baseball.com. And I remember thinking, like, man, I just hope we make it. I just hope we can create a site that we can make a little bit of money and just keep this thing afloat. And what it's turned into has been pretty incredible. We had 10 guys on the road last weekend. We'll have I think we have 12 or 13 regionals covered this weekend on site. So it's been a lot of fun, and we'll be covering the coaching carousel, transfer tracker, and all the above. But yeah, I would love to come back and break down the Omaha field. Have either of you guys been to the College World Series before?
Yeah, so I actually coached at Iowa Western. I coached football up there, so we'd go right across the river to because we were in Council Bluffs up there, so next to Omaha, we'd go to it all the time, and I'll say this, it is one of the most underrated experiences as far as a sporting event goes. The scenery in all aspects is incredible, and the level of baseball now, the talent, especially on the mound, just continues to blow me away with how far we've come. Not that guys were bad back in the day, but I mean, you're rolling guys out, set up guys that are pumping 94, 95 with a cutter and a slider. Like it's insane. But I
always tell people if somebody from another country came to the United States and said hey, I want a unique Americana experience, I'll always tell them go to the College World Series the first weekend in Omaha.
Yeah.
It's like a hodgepodge of California, Texas, heck, the one year you had Stony Brook. So you had people from Long Island. Yeah. If there's ever a event to go to that's just a really nice group of everything, but it's like a big party, go to the College World Series. You won't regret it. Anybody I've ever told to go that had never been, they're like, man, I'm glad you told me to go to that because it was pretty awesome.
No, it's a great experience. Nobody ever cries on a jet ski. That's the way I say it.
I'm trying to go, dude. Take me.
All right, I'll take you. We'll all go. But Kendall, thanks so much, man. Hope to have you back.
Got it, guys.
And hopefully we talk about Auburn going to Omaha at some point. We'll see. Butch has got them rolling. Kendall Rogers, thanks, brother.
Thanks.
And thank you, guys. Make sure you hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Gonna have some fantastic college baseball coming your way starting this weekend. And like the chances of me not being excited about it. And softball's still going on, which I think is the best women's sport, but we can argue that.
Yeah.
We're gone.